Hope everyone's having a great day. And today we're back with another episode of going through all 64 hexagrams of this new version of the I Ching called the Oracle of the Cosmic Way, or as I like to refer to it simply as the Cosmic I Ching. And we are on hexagram number 7 today, the Army. So let's get to it. The Army, the judgments. The Army needs firm correctness and a strong man, good fortune without blame. And by the way, this is earth over water, or water in the earth, which is kind of like everywhere and a very solid foundation, you know. In this hexagram, the sage refers to two different kinds of armies, the cosmic army and the army of the collective ego, which with each having a different order and different goals. And by the way, you'll notice in a lot of these hexagrams that it kind of presents two different ways of looking at them. The traditional way of the collective ego, and then this new cosmic way, which I think this book, you know, does a great job at describing, and which is really a totally new perspective for many people, including myself, most definitely. The cosmic army is the name for that aspect of the cosmic consciousness that fights violations of cosmic principles of harmony by humans. It comprises cosmic helpers that fight in a coordinated way in accordance with these principles. So there's a cosmic army. Wow. Although the leader mentioned in line 2, it suggests that the cosmic army is a hierarchical organization. This is not so. The leader is the person's true self, also referred to here as the strong man who is firmly correct. His function is to initiate the army's action and coordinate support by calling on it for help and by saying the inner no to the incorrect situation. He also does not allow the ego to become involved in the situation. The cosmic army's function is to fight in unseen ways when called upon, transgressions against ourselves, other people, and against nature in general, animals, plants, and the earth as a whole. When humans try to do this themselves, they only create opposition that strengthens the aggressor. For when the ego is engaged in defending, the other's ego is energized and empowered. It is the duty of a person to be unwavering in saying the inner no, first to the ego in himself, and then to the ego in others whenever it appears. This may necessitate either suspending any distrust that the cosmic army is effective enough, or saying the inner no to any fear that the cosmic army might do something harmful to the other person. This hexagram also refers to the way the collective ego fights transgressions by arguing, engaging in lawsuits, practicing passive resistance, or by any of those ways in which matters are taken in hand, as in fighting in wars. Responding in this way only brings a fate to the person who does so. As for the aggressors, they have already brought a fate on themselves. This hexagram gives counsel on how to respond to an inner war that is already in progress. It also counsels the person on how he may end his part in it and the fate he has created by participating in it. The first step is to take away the poison arrow created by hissing the other as a culprit. And we talked a lot about culprits in the last episode. The second step is to say the inner no to his own hatred and blaming. The third is to dispel other spells he may identify that have been put on him or on the other. While another may have done hideous things, the person needs to realize that he did them not because his nature is evil, but because he is either under spells or his inner programming contains mistaken beliefs. Saying the inner no to these mistaken beliefs strengthens that person's true self, giving him the opportunity to correct himself. The fourth step is to thank the helpers. This process may need to be repeated over a period of several days, which can be determined by using the RTCM, the retrospective 3-coin method. The cosmic army accomplishes its task only through transformation, which is why it does not create resistance or opposition. When an individual sees the collective ego or its institutions as culprits, he not only creates its determined opposition, he creates in himself feelings of aggression and frustration. These feelings further empower the collective ego and keep him engaged in the demonic sphere of consciousness. If he then tries to resolve his conflict by fighting the collective ego openly, he creates a poisonous reaction. Saying the inner no to seeing it as a culprit, on the other hand, lifts him out of the demonic sphere of consciousness and deprives the collective ego of its power over him. He also needs to realize that once institutionalized, has continued through, he needs to realize that the collective ego is not an external entity. It's not an external entity. It is rather a set of mistaken beliefs that once institutionalized continue through the power that each individual has given to it, and through acceding to its self-proclaimed authority, which is it does not possess. The cosmic army operates parallel to fate in counteracting the person's attempts to bring justice according to his ideas. When a person interferes with fate in this manner, the fate is not only prevented from returning to its source, the person also draws the fate to himself. That sounds terrible. This is true for the leaders of countries as well as for individuals. A person may receive this hexagram when, through listening to the ego, he feels defeated. He needs to call on the cosmic army for help and say the inner no to the ego. A person may also receive this hexagram when he has become involved in one or another type of war, which has been initiated by the following ego behaviors, which can be challenging another's pride to engage in conflict, giving up on another's true self by fixing them as hopeless or inhuman or as having no feelings, treating another insensitively as if he does not exist or has no worth, encroaching into another's inner space or using force, acting aggressively or with careless abandon. The person mistreated is meant to win the battle through holding to his inner truth by saying the inner no to the unjust act and all attempts of the other's ego to engage him. The person who has caused the war can end it by freeing the other from the projection, spells, and poison arrows he has put on him, and by apologizing to the cosmos for his transgressions. He also needs to free himself of any projection, spells, and poison arrows that have been put on him. If a person sees himself as the victim, he needs to inquire through the RTCM what part, if any, he may have played in provoking the aggression and correct himself accordingly. When an inner war exists between people, the cosmic army needs to be called to help resolve it. It is important that the person seeking its help be free of personal desires and intentions, and especially free of any desire to come out on top and of any claims to being in the right. To say the inner no to any ego desires, aspirations, and intentions is the meaning of being firm and correct, which you hear a lot throughout the I Ching. A person may also receive this hexagram when he is under attack by projections, spells, or poison arrows, or when he is under attack by fears initiated by the ego and himself. You may determine how the hexagram is to be applied by using the RTCM. Line 1. An army must set forth in proper order. If the order is not good, misfortune threatens. Since the cosmic army is initiated by a person's true self, this line suggests that the ego is still in place. Therefore, the cosmic army cannot be activated. If he then goes ahead to defend or assert himself, he will certainly create a fate. A person can receive this line when he's under attack by somebody or under the attack of his own fears. Setting forth in proper order refers to the correct order of his responses when under threat. He first needs to determine with the help of the RTCM the inner truth of the situation. Often, either he or the opposing persons are reacting to projections, spells, or poison arrows, in which case he needs to free the situation of them. Otherwise, he may only need to say the inner no to the threatening person, idea, or thing and ask the helpers to help. Among the seed phrases that prevent the person from following this order of action are those that say, I'll show them, and you must act, defend yourself. In the first case, the phrase comes from injured pride that may have occurred in childhood. In the second case, the phrase comes from the belief that one has no invisible helpers and has to take outer action. Line 2, in the midst of the army, good fortune, no blame. The king bestows a triple decoration. This line says that the cosmic army is in order when a person's true self is in command of his personality. When he has said the necessary inner no's to what is incorrect and has asked the cosmic army to come to his aid, then there is no blame, and the king, here meaning the sage, his cosmic guide, fully supports him. Being in the midst of the army is also a metaphor for the constant awareness the person must have of the first signs that the ego is trying to take over, either by inspiring fear or overconfidence. The ego wants to see others as culprits and itself as the righteous one. Allowing it to become the driving force would give rise to continuous and bitter warfare. When the person's true self is in command, he is on guard against the ego's attempts to argue with the other. He is likewise on guard against his tendency to seize natural emotions such as anger in order to turn them into hatred. He is also on guard against comparing himself with others, whereby it gains control over him through self-pity, envy, or competing with them. He is also on guard against the kind of wanting that makes him forget the gifts and help the cosmos constantly gives him. He recognizes the first whisperings of the ego in the form of worrying, which makes him forget the cosmic help that is always available to him. He stops at the outset the idle curiosity that causes him to encroach into the inner spaces, including those of animals and nature, or into the way of the cosmos, in hopes of attaining power over these things. The true self recognizes that allowing the ego to do these things betrays his inner truth, dignity, and self-respect. The king bestows a triple decoration, is often interpreted mistakenly as a confirmation the person receiving this line has been doing the right thing. He has received the line, however, to make him aware that he has been acting with an eye to obtaining the approval of the collective ego. The collective ego, as king, would encourage the ego behaviors mentioned above. It even authorizes politicians, businessmen, news reporters, researchers, scientists, teachers, adventurers, etc., to intervene and encroach self-importantly and self-righteously into the private lives and thoughts of people, and into the lives and secrets of animals and nature in general, as measures of the professional success. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that insane? What the collective ego does not tell its adherents is that all such behavior creates a fate. No blame from the standpoint of the collective ego refers to adhering to its standards and conventions. Such adherence, however, is invariably against the person's inner truth, therefore creates blame in the cosmic sense. It needs to be understood that the collective ego declares the individual's inner truth as invalid simply and only because it is outside its jurisdiction or indirect or direct control. So long as a person's views keep him in awe and fear of the collective ego, his ability to bring the cosmic karma to his defense will remain blocked. A person's inner truth is the only thing that keeps him in harmony with the cosmos and able to arouse the cosmic army. If the person has incurred cosmic blame, he can rid himself of it if he will ask the sage for help to remove his awe of the collective ego's institution and to discover the phrases and images in his inner program that have given rise to it. Line 3. Perchance the army carries corpses in the wagon, misfortune. This line indicates that the turning point in the battle being carried out by the cosmic army has been reached. Up to now, the job of the true self as its initiator has been to keep the ego from entering the scene. Invariably, in such situations, the person now was withdrawn from conflict with another into neutrality. Withdrawal temporarily shuts down the aperture of the heart. Misfortune means that the closing of the heart has been seized by the ego and held as a sort of ransom. It says inwardly to the other, before I will open my heart again, you must humble yourself by begging forgiveness or making restitution. This seizure of the heart by the ego has injured the person's helper of the heart, rendering it ineffective. The corpse mentioned is the other person who has been mentally executed by this action. Before any healing of the situation could take place, this helper needs to be asked to reopen one's heart. This is possible if he will rid himself of the ego's demands. In all situations involving the cosmic army, the victory sought cannot be achieved if the heart is kept closed. Corpses can also refer to a person's wishing for another's death. Such a wish is a poison arrow that needs to be removed. This line can also indicate that a person is acting from passive aggressive behavior due to having lost his ability to say no to an authority during childhood. This loss has deprived him of certain benefits of his common sense. One of them being the ability to receive chi energy from the cosmos. This deprivation has caused him to carry an inner grudge, which he takes out on others by employing tactics to anger them, while at the same time appearing to be an innocent victim. In this way, he draws the chi energy he needs from them. The corpse in this case refers to his disabled helper of common sense. It can be recovered if he asks for help to recall the childhood situation that caused him to lose his ability to say the inner no. Corpses can also refer to a person's common sense that has been overwhelmed through his placing responsibility for himself upon another person. His common sense can also be overwhelmed through his placing credence on existing beliefs. The misfortune he suffers is the defeat of his inner dignity and self-esteem. Corpses, in a cosmic meaning, can refer to ego elements in oneself or another that have been conquered, such as pride and vindictiveness, both of which were interested in keeping the war going. As a result of the person's effort at freeing himself from these elements, they are now being taken away in the wagon, which is a metaphor for the helpers that clean up the battle scene and the helper of transformation that restores the person to wholeness. Line 4, the army retreats, no blame. The cosmic army has retreated because a person has failed to discipline the ego and is engaged in a fight. Although this has left him without defenses and subject to the fate he has created, the cosmic army is not to be blamed for having retreated. The person can end his fate if he ceases fighting and says no to the ego. This no also needs to be said to the ego's attachment to annoyance, anger, envy, hurt, pride, and its desire to punish the other and see him as a culprit. It also needs to be set to the ego's desire to prove itself superior in character, virtues, abilities, knowledge, heroism, and its attempts to wrestle the other person into submission. Because of the cosmic army's retreat and is being left unprotected, it may be that the person has received projections, spells, or poison arrows from the other, which will cause illness or a feeling of not being well. His health will be restored if he frees himself of the spells and poison arrows involved. He also needs to free the other of any projection spells or poison arrows he has put on him. Line 5. There is game in the field. It furthers one to catch it, without blame. Let the eldest lead the army. The younger transports corpses. Game here refers to particular negative emotions such as hatred, vengeance, and hurt pride coming from the ego. In the field means the emotions have come out into the open to attack either himself, the sage, the I Ching way, another person, nature, or fate. It furthers one to catch it indicates their destructive nature if they are allowed to continue. It is when they are in the open that the opportunity arises to intercept and deprogram the seed phrases and images on which these emotions are based. Doing so prevents blame from occurring. The eldest that needs to lead the army is the helper of discipline, which is at the person's disposal if called upon. It can effectively obliterate the power that these ego-driven emotions have assumed over the personality. It does so through showing that aspect of the psyche that has been trained to believe it is helpless against these emotions. If it joins the effort to discipline the ego, the terror produced by these emotions can be overcome. The discipline involved is to say the inner no to them. It all comes down to the inner no. The younger transports corpses refers to the formerly terrorized aspect of the psyche that now is capable of disposing of the negative emotions or corpses that have been killed by the inner no. The younger, or that part of the psyche that was terrorized, is transformed by this experience into a helper of inner strength, so that now the person is able to stand up to new efforts of the ego to seize and control the emotions. I like, I think one of the 10 commandments in the Bible is thou shalt not kill. And I think that's actually a bit of social programming, because really we have to kill these elements in our psyche that are, these ego elements, these kind of demonic elements. In other places, the I Ching calls them imps, demons, and dragons, because that's kind of the appearance they take on in the psyche and meditation and stuff. And the only way to get rid of them is to kill them. But people have they've kind of been conditioned to have a resistance to killing anything whatsoever, even if it is something that is parasitic consciousness in them that is blocking their true self. Anyways, this line can also point to the poison arrow mentioned in line 3 that has damaged the person's ability to say no to an authority. Now that he is an adult, he can ask for the help of the sage to stand up to his childhood fear of authority. Game in the field can also refer to a health problem, which serves as a message telling a person that a mistaken idea or belief stored in his psyche is the cause of the problem and needs to be extinguished. This mistaken idea or belief can be identified by casting another hexagram and using the RTCM to clarify precisely what it is. Game in the field can also refer to an ego-driven doubt of the sage that is interfering with the person's efforts to free his true self. The eldest in this case is the element in his psyche that makes the person aware that the doubt is coming from the ego. No blame is incurred if he says the inner no to its phrases. Line 6, the great prince issues commands, found states, best families with fiefs, inferior people should not be employed. This line shows how the collective ego succeeds in extending its power through employing only those who operate within its system of values. It can likewise be taken as referring to the individual ego when it believes it has won a battle against the ego in another. The sage also uses the metaphor of the great prince to mean the true self, when it has won a battle over the ego that has assumed its rightful place in the personality. In particular, it refers to the true self when the person has made the inner effort indicated in the previous lines. He completes this effort by saying a conscious yes to following his inner truth. The states he found is a reference to his setting correct limits around his inner space so that he does not allow others to encroach into it. At the same time, he respects the inner space of others. He also applies the same limits to himself in regard to animals and nature by repudiating the human-centered ideas of having rights to manipulate and use them. in distinction to cooperating with them. The families who receive fiefs is a metaphor for the conscious validation of the person's metaphorical senses. Through saying the inner yes to them, they are freed from the ego's oppression and imprisonment, thus are able to occupy their true homes in the personality. In line 5, they were referred to as the younger. The fiefs also represent their task within the personality to serve inner truth. Inferior people should not be employed as a warning against allowing ego elements to return by small and subtle suggestions that the help received from the sage and the helpers was not the real cause of the improved situation. It is they that try to rationalize things away by suggestions such as the situation simply got better by itself. Only through the help of the sage and the helpers can false elements that invade and take over the psyche be defeated. When this line refers to the ego in a person which believes it has won an outer battle against the ego in another, it warns that inferior people have been employed and that the gains won by such means cannot endure. While history provides us with many obvious examples of the rise of dictators, it also provides us with the details of their inevitable fall. The fall of the ego is cosmic law. It is only a matter of time. The same dynamic takes place in every ego-dominated relationship. Wow, the fall of the ego is cosmic law. There's no escaping it. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. And, I think time is running out for a lot of things right now, if you know what I'm talking about. All right, guys, thank you very much. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the episode. And I'm going to be doing the rest of these very soon. So I hope you stick with the series and, explore this amazing book. Absolutely mind-blowing and life-changing, world-changing book, I believe. I sincerely do believe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.